in the Florida governor and Senate races.
Andrea, both of those recounts are underway, but the one place that's getting a lot of scrutiny now is, yes, Palm Beach County, but also Broward County. And what we've heard there is that the Rick Scott campaign was seeking an injunction to put more law enforcement around the machines and the ballots in Broward County. And the judge there in that injunction said he didn't think he had the evidence to make that happen, but he suggested that, and these parties are going to reconvene in about an hour, so we'll have more on you for this then. But he suggested that maybe you put 3 sheriffs who don't report to the supervisor of elections there, Brenda Snipes, who has become a really controversial figure in this. But he said something else that I thought was really interesting. You mentioned in your show open that people have been talking about fraud, but not providing any evidence of that. The judge took note of that and cautioned everybody to tamp their rhetoric down, because what's said in front of these election offices is being heard around the world and taken seriously, and that these words have consequences. And so when you hear Rick Scott and the President of the United States and other Republicans come out and talking about fraud or ballots coming up out of nowhere, there's been no evidence of that. And I think that's really important as we go forward, both with the legal side of this and the recount itself, Andrea.
And we should also point out that Brenda Snipes in Broward County is a Republican appointed by former governor, then Governor Jeb Bush. So she was put in by a Republican governor after the mess that we all remember from 2000. And she's hardly a Democratic official or someone doing the bidding of the Democratic candidates there.
Circuit Judge Rag Singhal has ruled that the Broward County Supervisor of Elections, Brenda Snipes, violated state and federal laws by destroying ballots she was still legally required to retain from a 2016 congressional race.
As it relates to this situation, I think the problem is that we had, they were destroyed by mistake.
Congressional candidate Tim Canova had sought to look at the paper ballots in his race following his loss to Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz in the Democratic primary. Canova took Brenda Snipes to court in June 2017 when her office didn't fulfill his request. Snipes approved the destruction of the ballots in September, signing a certification that said no court cases involving the ballots were pending.
Why did you sign a document allowing for the destruction of Mr. Canova's ballots?
When I sign folders filled with information. So I was given a document by Mr. Spencer. That's his responsibility. And that's how I happen to have signed the document.
Okay. And you knew that those ballots were the ballots, that those records were the public records that were sought by lawsuit?
I did not review every line on that document. There were a lot of things listed. I trust my staff. They have the responsibility of giving me information that's correct.
The judge's ruling cited a previous case that held dismissal was an appropriate sanction for failing to preserve evidence, even though the destruction of evidence may have resulted from negligence rather than an attempt to obstruct justice.
Recounting chaos is rocking Florida as Governor Rick Scott slams his Democratic opponent Rick Nelson for trying to, quote, steal the Senate seat, filing a new lawsuit to secure the ballots. And all eyes are back on Broward County, which our next guest is calling an election swamp, having sued the supervisor there and won. Joining us now is Florida law professor and former independent congressional candidate Tim Canova. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So tell us about your personal experience dealing with Broward County specifically.
Sure. I ran for Congress in 2016 in a Democratic primary against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And after the election, we tried to verify the vote by inspecting the ballots. Long and short of it is I had to sue Brenda Snipes, the supervisor of elections, a close ally, I should say, of Wasserman Schultz. In fact, they campaigned together just a couple of weeks ago. And I sued. We won. We showed that she destroyed the ballots. That's violations of federal and state criminal statutes. Some are felonies punishable by up to 5 years in prison. She lied to the court and really conspired with her own staff to commit these crimes.
So
At
hearing
the time,
you, So hearing you say that, this was, 2016, she'd violated numerous state and federal statutes, punishable as felonies with up to 5 years in prison. Why is she still in charge?
That's a great question, and I called on Governor Scott many months ago to fire her to conduct a criminal investigation, and not just Governor Scott, reached out to the Florida Attorney General, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. The U.S. Attorney could not be bothered. I mean, these are federal offenses as well. And I warned at the time, if they didn't prosecute her, if they didn't remove her from office, she would be just a walking felon. There'd be a moral hazard problem. She would engage in this kind of illegal activity in the future, and that we would lose faith and confidence in our elections. And all of that has come to pass. There's nobody that can guarantee to me, to my satisfaction, that she didn't destroy more ballots in this election or create new ballots, or that she didn't rig the machines. We've seen how easy it is for an 11-year-old girl to rig the machines. We've had reports of that in recent weeks. And Wasserman Schultz herself famously boasted that they have many ways of rigging elections.
And
well, we'd like to really know what happened.
Yeah, as we talk about this, I want to bring up the latest numbers that we have for everyone. And in the Senate race between Scott and Nelson, there's a difference of about 0.16%. And then in the governor, there's about a difference between DeSantis and Gillum of 0.4%. What do you think needs to happen in order for people to be confident that their vote is counting?
Well, I'll tell you, I think this recount, whoever comes out on the losing end, half of the voters of this state are going to feel that it's a rigged election. I think there's plenty of grounds to actually start talking about invalidating this election. We've seen breakdowns in the chain of custody of paper ballots. With somebody who has the record that Brenda Snipes does, to have engaged in these kinds of deceitful, dishonest, illegal activity, I say invalidate the election and have a revote. Now, it's more complicated to do it statewide for the governor's race and the Senate race, but I'll tell you, candidates in Broward County have no confidence. I have no confidence that I lost legitimately a week or two ago. In fact, we left Snipes in office. Instead of punishing her, she punished me. The vote total I got was laughable. I mean, really almost a joke. And I'm not surprised. And, I think we should talk about invalidating the election and revoting. I think that would be the only way to have real legitimacy going forward for whoever is going to win.
And you originally ran as a Democrat. Because of all this, the result of it, you became an independent.
Well, that's true. I reached out to the Democratic Party leaders in Broward County, Miami-Dade, and Tallahassee, and none of them would even respond to my request to join me in calling for an investigation. But the Republicans were no better. Rick Scott was, just completely silent on all of this when he had the power to do something about it. And to tell you the truth, I wrote to every member of Congress, of the House and Senate, and got not a single response. So, the political class doesn't mind stolen elections when it doesn't happen to them, when it's just a progressive challenger to a powerful incumbent. Now suddenly they all wake up to the fact that, my God, we've got somebody who's conducting elections in Broward County who can't be trusted.
I mean, we will see what happens for sure, but a lot of people talking about it. Maybe something will happen this time. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.